Your husband was found dead 5 weeks after starting an antidepressant.
I don't even know that Woody knew it was an antidepressant. Everything intuitively in my body said there's no way Woody. You want to keep cradle to grave customers telling you that you have a chemical imbalance and you're going to have to be on it for life. And then you tell them that you can't get off of them.
On August 6th of 2003, Kim Witczak's world came crashing down. While out of town, she got a call from her dad telling her Woody, her husband of almost 10 years, was found from the rafters of their garage, dead at the age of 37. The most recent change in her husband's life, a prescription to Zoloft. This episode is about the unknown risks and side effects of SSRIs, or antidepressants, that every person needs to be aware of. Kim was hungry for justice. This journey for the truth took her to the FDA, HHS, Congress, the courts, and the media, fighting for more drug transparency and accountability. To advocate and educate doctors, healthcare providers, legislators, and government agencies as a counterbalance to the stories that are being peddled by the Big Pharma lobby. She's currently a consumer representative on the FDA Psychopharmacologic Advisory Committee and travels the globe sharing her story and expertise. Watch this episode on the Real Alex Clark YouTube channel, although, just a reminder, anytime we say a certain word due to YouTube guidelines, we're gonna have to beep it, or you could watch it on Culture Apothecary there on Spotify. Please pause and leave a free 5-star review for us right now, or if you are financially able and find it in your heart to give, we are completely donor funded, so you can leave a tax-deductible donation through the link in the show notes specifically to fund the costs of making this show. Please welcome the legendary and very brave Kim Witczak to Culture Apothecary. What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, Lexapro, and Celexa?
Corruption, lies, misled. The marketing that has, which is more than one word, but the marketing has been behind the success of these drugs.
Before your husband's passing, did you ever have an idea that Zoloft or the medication he was on might be influencing his mental state in such a profound way?
No, truthfully, I had never really knew much about antidepressants at all. You know, it's interesting. Years before that, I had started a nonprofit working with abused and neglected kids. And I remember using the power of arts. And I will never forget, this was in early, mid-90s, every one of those kids picked up a cup of meds. And I remember thinking, what? Like, are they all sick, like strep throat? And she said, no, this is their behavior medicine, their staff people. So that was like how blind I was to any of these mental health drugs prior to my husband's death.
What year did you get married?
I got married in 1993.
What do you remember about falling in love with your husband initially?
He's super funny. I remember when I first met him at a bar. It was my birthday party, and I went in to use the bathroom, and here he's standing, and he started talking to me because he overheard me talking to some other guys about Minnesota. And I said, "Are you from Minnesota?" And he goes, "No, those guys are losers." And I remember like talking and laughing with him, and he said he would call me the next day, and he did. And that was the start of our relationship that eventually turned to marriage.
What did the doctor prescribe him, and what did the doctor tell him about the risk of that medication?
He got samples of Zoloft. He went in there because he had just started his dream job with a startup company and was having trouble sleeping. He went to see his doctor, who he always went to see his doctor for, like, they usually like fixed like a stitches or something like that. So he got samples of Zoloft for insomnia.
And how long did he use those samples before getting like the full-blown prescription?
It was a 3-week sample pack. And then he was alive 2 more weeks after that.
That was it?
5 weeks. 5 weeks from the start of his first prescription, or the pill, to the time he was found dead.
And to your knowledge, how much time was spent in that doctor visit going over risks and side effects of Zoloft?
Oh, I'm going to say probably little to nothing. You know, I think Woody was assuming that, like a lot of us do, that the pill that he was getting would help him sleep. And that was what he was told, that this pill will help take the edge off and help you sleep. And so Woody, I don't even know that Woody knew it was an antidepressant.
Was he on any other medications at the time?
No, he was on no other medications.
Take us back to that day in 2003. What do you remember?
So it's August. I was out on a shoot. It was my busy time of the year. And I hadn't heard from Woody all day, and which was kind of bizarre because we talked all the time. And so I finally called my dad like towards the end of the day. And I'm like, hey, Dad, do me a favor. I haven't heard from Woody at all today. And I'm afraid like Woody hit his head or something. And so that's what I was expecting. And so my dad's like, sure. My parents lived a couple miles away, and they went over, and I'm in the middle of a shoot. It's like 9:00 at night. And my dad calls and he's like, it's bad. It's bad. I'm like, what do you mean it's bad? And he's like, Woody's dead. I'm like, what? What do you mean Woody's dead? And I'm like, how do you know he's dead? Like, how do you know he's dead? And he's like, he's, I'm like, what? What? And so like literally in that moment, I remember I was in the back lot. I come back into the studio, and like, I don't even know that I knew anything. Like it just went black. Everything went black because it was so shocking. And even when I tell that story, because I kind of forget about the night of getting that call, but I will never forget trying to get back to the hotel because I'm out of town. So now I have to figure out, how am I going to get back to Minneapolis? And I'm like, the whole time I was like, Woody, like what? Like how, this isn't even possible. Like, what do you mean Woody?
And
Like,
any prior history of any type of depressive episodes or distress or suicidal ideation or anything?
no, Woody got it. Like, so that was the whole point. Like, Woody wasn't depressed. Like, I had been married to him for 10 years and dated him for 3 years prior. So Woody when he got put on that drug, it was starting his, it was his startup job, startup company, electrical engineering. It was like a dream job for him. And so he was having trouble sleeping. So I knew that, right? But when he went into the doctor, I happened to be just left to go out of the country for the first 3 weeks that Woody got put on that drug. So I wasn't even around when Woody went to the doctor. I left Sunday. He went to the doctor Monday. I come home 3 weeks later because I was in New Zealand. I come home, and I will never forget something that now I look back, and it should have been like something I should have recognized, but I didn't know to even look for anything. I come home, I was waiting for Woody. He walks through our back door, completely drenched through his dress shirt. His hands, he falls to the floor. I don't want to and grabs in a fetal position. Kim, you got to help me. I don't know what's happening to me. My head's outside my body. You got to help me. And he's rocking back and forth like this. And I'm like, And I remember just looking at him going, oh my God, Woody, if your job is so stressful, quit. Like I had no
But
idea.
he had been on the medication at that point?
Yeah, he had been on it for 3 weeks.
I mean, that almost sounds like hallucinations and just...
He said he was driving around all day and he couldn't like stop crying. And so we calmed him down. We did breathing. We prayed. He eventually called his doctor, and the doctor said, you got to give it 4 to 6 weeks to kick in.
Oh my gosh.
So we had no idea. So when Woody died, like literally it made absolutely no sense, because this isn't a guy who had a history of depression, or he wasn't depressed. In fact, he was, because he was super anal about making sure he kept track of how many miles he ran on his running shoes because he was trying to train for a marathon. We had his binder. He was still running till the day he died.
And was there any notes left or any explanation?
No note.
Was that the hardest part?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Till the day I moved out of my house 5 years later, I still was like, Woody, come on. Like, I know you had to left me a note, because we left notes all the time because we both traveled for work. He was in sales and was gone. And I always called him the honey-do list, like, hi, honey.
Yes.
They'd be leaving in my car or whatever. But I'm like, wait, you went on the biggest trip of your life and you did not leave me a note? The night that Woody was found, I was sitting in my hotel room trying to figure out how I was getting home. And the coroner got on the phone and asked me a simple question. Was Woody taking any medication? And I didn't even know what it was. I go, yeah, I think it's upstairs. And she goes, oh no, there's a bottle of Zoloft sitting on the kitchen counter under a light. And I said, and she goes, Zoloft. And I go, yeah, that's it. And she goes, we're going to take it with us. It might have something to do with his death.
And so that was the first time you'd ever kind of had that in your mind.
Yeah, I didn't even ever put two and two together. And especially when we called the doctor and the doctor's like, you got to give the drug 4 to 6 weeks. Like I didn't put anything together. So that was clue number 1. And clue number 2, the front page of our newspaper had an article that said the UK finds link between antidepressants and in teens. And so in some ways, I believe that those were the notes.
And the pills under the light?
The light. I mean, you can't even make this up. Like,
yeah.
There's been so many God moments in this, what I call the battle for Woody, that I believe there was a higher purpose behind it. And it almost like, it still gets me pretty emotional. I believe it had to be somebody like Woody who had no history, that went from this to, he went from head out, like not sleeping, to head outside the body in 3 weeks to in a total of 5 weeks. And at that time, you have to remember, there were no warnings. There were nothing. Like now, today, it's very different. But that became what I call the battle for Woody, the mission, is if we are smart, like we were smart, we knew none of this. None of this. But that night when Woody was found, my dad called, my mom and my sister and her husband, Eric. And Eric went home and Googled Zoloft and had no idea that in 1991, the FDA held hearings when it was just Prozac on the market, and the advisory board meeting where they looked at the emergence of violence and suicide. And every one of those members on that advisory board committee took money from pharmaceutical companies that made antidepressant products. And they all went like this, nope, we don't see anything. That was 91. And I would encourage every one of your viewers, if you don't believe me, there are videos out on YouTube, and I have them even on my YouTube channel, that are 1991 family members that were telling their loved ones stories from like their kids and then themselves. Somebody who took a gun to their head and they had just started Prozac. And so for the FDA and these advisory board members who did nothing in 91, nothing. They told Eli Lilly to study suicidality. They never did, and the FDA never followed up. Meanwhile, now we have Zoloft and Paxil, and it gets approved for kids, and now it's 2003 and Woody's dead.
After Woody's death, how long did it take you before you were like, I'm making the first step, like I'm basically going into activism now, or I'm sounding alarms? Like, who did you go to first, or what did you do?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say this. You don't just come out and go, I'm going to take on this fight, right?
Well, of course, yeah. But you must have done something like, I'm going to go talk to his doctor, or I'm going to,
I remember after Wood died and we had our funeral, and the agency that I worked at made these life-size posters of Woody, and they were all in my basement. And I was sitting down there, like looking at these life-size posters of Woody, and I'm bawling. And for anybody, like, heartache's real, and it's like I'm trying to scratch out like this pain. And I kept praying, God, take my pain and use it. It does me no good. I just wanted this to go away, right? Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is praying because he, at this point, has ordered all of these books. Probably one of the first one was by David Healy, Let Him Eat Prozac, and then another one by Peter Bregan. And he literally did not sleep for a week straight, and he read all this. And so while I was saying, use my pain and take my pain and use it, he was praying, I need to do something with all of this information. So he came to me and he said, I think I figured out what happened to Woody. And this was probably not even 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after Woody died, because everything intuitively in my body said there's no way Woody killed himself. We had just planned our 10-year anniversary trip to go to Thailand. we couldn't do kids without having like in vitro and so we just booked that. We booked his mom and dad's trip to Hawaii with him. I'm like, there is no way Woody would. Literally, I kind of feel like it was that kind of coming together. And then I will say, when I met Woody, we used to live in Chicago, and he said, when I die, don't throw me in the box he goes, I want my ashes in the middle of Lake Michigan, right? Which is, he always called Chicago home. And so we had one funeral in Minneapolis, another one in Chicago, and we were going to get ready to spread his ashes in the middle of the lake. And it's my brother-in-law, again, my sister's husband, and me standing at the edge of the boat. I'm holding this box of Woody. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is what we become, is like, this isn't Woody. Like, and all of a sudden we look down in the middle of the lake. What is that? And it's this red book floating. And I go, does that say what I think it does? And he goes, yeah. In gold letters, it said the Holy Bible.
What?
It's crazy. This is and that floated right by us.
Whoa.
And the two of, thank God it wasn't just me who saw it. They'd be like, oh my God, she's a crazy grieving widow making this up, right?
Yeah.
But
there were witnesses.
Yeah. Both of us, and that became my partner. And it was almost like God's saying, trust me, you guys, like Woody's here, like, but this is a mission that I'm going to be with you. And so really after that happened, he and I like started going out to DC because we're like, this has to be what we're going to do. We're going to get warnings. Like if these guys in 91 didn't do their job, we have to do it. Like we had binders, not binders from what eventually I always talk about my binders, but we put binders of information that we found on Google, like, and just found all this stuff and other stories, like a little 13-year-old kid that there was a big story about that himself. They had just moved. And so we knew that there were some things happening because of what happened and what we were reading over in the UK. So that became our mission. And I was lucky because I had a company that they saw this passion because they also knew Woody, and they're like, no way would Woody have done that. They gave me, which I have to say, for anybody who has an ability to help somebody who's had grief, this company gave me short-term disability for 5 months, and I still got paid, and I was able to spend my mission and my time, and we were on a plane out to DC. We were meeting with anybody and everybody, starting with our one in Minnesota that then connected us to different people and representatives.
Have you recently given up Botox like me in the last few years? There's nothing I'm more obsessed with than finding something that I can eat or drink that's good for me and also has added beauty and skin benefits with targeted cellular hydration. I've been going ham with the Taylor Dukes Wellness new Blue Beauty drink. It plumps, hydrates, and renews and is made with real ingredients only. This beautiful blue, sweet, citrusy concoction promotes beauty from within, made with superfoods like blue spirulina, bovine collagen, biotin, seaweed, and amla. The Taylor Dukes Wellness Blue Beauty drink combines anti-aging hydration that nourishes your hair, skin, nails, and gut. The ingredients are also fantastic: hydrolyzed bovine collagen, lemon powder, pineapple powder, date powder, kelp powder, brown seaweeds extract, silica, blue spirulina extract, amla powder, tremella mushroom extract, cassava root, ginger water extract, lime extract powder, stevia extract powder, lemon oil. All you gotta do is just mix this Blue Beauty drink in the water of your choice with some ice and a straw, and your hair, skin, and nails are going to thank you. The Blue Beauty drink from Taylor Dukes Wellness is non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, soy-free, and uses no artificial colors or flavors. Mix, shake, or froth once a day for Botox benefits without the neurotoxins. Blue spirulina is one of my favorite little superfood hacks, and I love that it's in this drink because it's particularly good for dry skin, which I really struggle with. Go to TaylorDukesWellness.com and use code AlexClark for 10% off the Blue Beauty drink. That's TaylorDukesWellness.com with code AlexClark for 10% off at TaylorDukesWellness.com. Hey girl, This Valentine's Day, you might be spending a little extra time in bed. And hey, who's judging? Certainly not me. It's the season of love, after all. But while you're, getting cozy under the covers, you may want to make sure your sheets aren't making things hotter than they need to be, right? Because they're already steamy. I recommend Cozy Earth's Bamboo Sheet Set. These sheets are so breathable, you'll stay cool even if things get a little toasty. They're made from 100% premium viscose from bamboo, so soft it's like sleeping on a cloud. And they even get softer with every wash because no one wants to wake up in a puddle of their own enthusiasm this Valentine's Day. That is disgusting. I'm talking about sweat. If you want to go full luxury, Cozy Earth's women's stretch knit bamboo pajama set is like a soft, cool hug that keeps your temperature just right all night long. The streets, aka my married friends, are saying it's perfect for both sleeping and other activities. With a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, you know Cozy Earth means business. Head over to cozyearth.com/Alex. Use code Alex. You're going to get 40% off your order. That's cozyearth.com/Alex, code Alex for 40% off. Remember, a better year starts with better sleep and better, you know what else. Wrap yourself in Cozy Earth.
In the book, Let 'Em Eat Prozac by David Healy, he talked about this law firm, this little scrappy law firm out in LA called Baum Headland. So Eric and I contacted them, told them the story about head outside the body that Woody was saying that he had. And the guys in LA, the lawyers said, hey, can you come out to LA? And we flew out again on our dime and met with them. And immediately they said, we want this lawsuit. We're going to take it. And that's one of the other aspects of my battle for Woody. We had, talking at the FDA, met with the top FDA officials. We had a lawsuit. We met with members of Congress. I met with the media because I'm not afraid of the media. I'm like, you guys need to be telling this story too. And so it's interesting, I contrast the media today versus what the media was back then. It actually did do their job, or at least would help report on maybe it was mostly promoting how great these drugs were. Because remember, this was also the era of Time magazine had just named Prozac the happy pill.
Right.
And it was all over. So you have to look at the time frame of when this was as well.
And so what happened with the lawsuit?
That was an interesting experience. Eventually, it became resolved.
Like a settlement, you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
There were all kinds of lawsuits. I had no idea that there were all these suicide lawsuits happening at the time that Woody was even put on this drug.
For antidepressants specifically?
Yeah, antidepressants and there were all sorts of lawsuits.
And who makes Zoloft?
Zoloft is Pfizer. So I had a lawsuit, Witczak v. Pfizer. It was just our case. But little do people know, the FDA was intervening in all of these private lawsuits. And people don't realize that the guy who went inside FDA, his name was Dan Troy, he got $300,000 from Pfizer before he took that job.
Every time.
It's amazing. And so this guy, Dan Troy, he was speaking at a legal counsel for in-house drug companies as well as outside counsel representing drug companies, where it was he was one of the main speakers and basically said, make it a Hollywood pitch, and quote unquote, his words, make it a Hollywood pitch and I'll determine if the FDA will intervene in your private lawsuits. Basically, it's this brief called preemption, which says even if Pfizer wanted to warn, the FDA is the ultimate, control of the label, which is not true. And it supersedes, it's all like legal jargon, but it supersedes like state laws. Not true. But what happened is most of the cases were getting thrown out because of what the FDA was doing. And so we helped to expose this, working with one of the representatives, Representative Hinchy out in New York, where we exposed that he got $300,000 from Pfizer. Eventually, Dan Troy left and went back and became the global chief counsel for GlaxoSmithKline, the makers of Paxil.
Would you agree that this is exclusively an American problem?
It is an American problem, this revolving door between going from industry, regulatory agencies, back to industry. It's about money. It is about money. It was not, none of this was about Woody.
How many people die due to side effects from antidepressants?
I don't have the exact number of that, but I can say of properly prescribed pharmaceuticals, it's the second or third leading cause of death.
So what you're saying is people that take their prescription drugs as they are told, it is the third or fourth leading cause of death in the United States.
Yeah.
That's approximately what, 130,000 people a year?
130, exactly. It's about 130,000 people every single year. There are experts who actually say it's higher than that. I remember, and this will be an example, we went to the FDA, met with the head FDA officials that approved this class of drugs, right? That were responsible for the antidepressants. We went with Dr. Healy, who was, again, the Let 'em Eat Prozac, myself, a couple other families who had lost loved ones the same way as Woody. Things like breakups, got nervous from, like I'm graduating from college, I don't have a job yet. I mean, normal things, right? That's how they got put on the drug and then went on. They were mostly. But we went and met with the FDA officials and they said, this is just an anecdote. And I'm like, what? He goes, well, we didn't see these in the double-blinded placebo-controlled studies. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought for sure, and this is how naive I was back then, like, I thought for sure they would be like, well, this is really interesting. This guy got this drug off late, like not even for depression, and he in 5 weeks. Like, or this kid got it because they moved to a new neighborhood, and he, like, I would think they would have been interested. But instead they said, this is just an anecdote. When there's a plane crash, you know, they send in a separate agency that would go in and investigate and see, like, where's the black box? Where, you know, like, what happened, you know, to hear the recording on a plane? They had no interest. And so that was like one of those things I'm like, they don't care about the harms.
And so now, today, is there a black box warning on Zoloft?
Yes. Eventually, in 2004, we were able to get help get black box warnings for kids under 18. Well, of course, the documents, the internal company documents, these companies have known it's all ages at risk. So we really pushed to get all ages. And eventually the FDA raised it to age 24 in 2006. And to this day, 2025, there still is no warning for all ages. Yet some of the documents that came out from my lawsuit that are from discovery phase in lawsuits that show, you know, what the companies knew. Pfizer knew that it happens on all ages. To this day, there's no warning for all ages. And every single time we keep seeing that they're like, oh, we got to take the black box warning off. They've tried it back in like 2010. They had the mental health groups say, oh, the reasons why we're having rise of suicides is because of the black box warning. And then they tried it again, like probably 5 years later. And now we're back at it again. We're hearing that they're trying to get black box warnings removed again.
Is there ever a case where antidepressants work?
Most of the efficacy studies or the studies to get the drug approved, it was barely better than placebo. Most of the other ones, because you only needed to get 2 studies that showed that the drug had efficacy and against the safety. And, you know, of course, that was one of the things I learned, that the pharmaceutical companies control the studies to get the drugs approved on the market. I'm like, wait, you're letting them control it? They get to control the narrative. They get to control the protocols. Like, that makes no sense from a regulatory agency that you think is supposed to be doing the job of public health and determining. But so when I look back at the efficacy of the antidepressant products, it was barely better than placebo. And then to see how marketing took it and called it a chemical imbalance. And so there's this whole lie of the chemical imbalance.
It's a marketing ploy?
Yeah, it's marketing.
That's not science.
We know that it maybe could do something to a brain, but there is no test. Like, if you go into your doctor, how do they mostly tell you that you may be depressed? You fill out a questionnaire. Well, if you look at that questionnaire that they use, that was created. Nobody looks at the tiny type at the very bottom. It's called the PHQ-9 screening form, and it's systematically used across the U.S. and I think even across the world. And it was created by a generous donation. If you look at the very bottom, a generous donation by Pfizer Inc. and 3 key opinion leaders.
It leads people into basically saying, yes, I'm
It's a
depressed.
screening tool. It is like, we use it in marketing. We call it a funnel.
It's like honey to flies.
Yes. Get a bunch of people here, because once they're in the funnel, they're ours. And that's what I look at this screening form. It was created by a Pfizer marketing guy in the 90s. And so it's the questionnaire that I bet your audience knows. In the last 2 weeks, have you felt sad? Have you felt less than worthy? Have you felt like yes? I mean, every time I put it, yeah, and it's and in my doctor's offices, and it's used at pediatricians, it's used at GPs, at the general practitioners. They give it to you at the time, like, is this your insurance form? And you do not have to fill it out. Like, I personally, it says in my record, I will not fill it out. My doctor didn't see the bottom type where it said a generous donation by Pfizer Inc. and 3 doctors. I go, do you know anything about those doctors? She goes, no. I go, let me tell you. They're all key opinion leaders who get monies from pharmaceutical companies to go out and promote the agendas of the companies.
It reminds me of Purdue creating that chart of the pain whenever they were promoting Oxycontin too.
Yeah.
Because that was in every single doctor's office. You know, it's on the scale, where's your pain at? Pick this little smiley face.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
My background, like I said, is in marketing. And I originally, so now I call myself the accidental advocate, because I do more than just mental health. It's like the pharmaceutical industry. I thought it was just an isolated issue with antidepressants. It's not. It's our whole it's our system that is broken.
Your husband was found dead 5 weeks after starting an antidepressant. Most people are on antidepressants for decades. So what are we seeing now happen to those people?
We're finding that people are having difficulties getting off. They are having issues with sexual dysfunction. Those warnings are in other countries, not at the FDA. We're still not recognizing it. That is a huge problem. When I look at the documents that we got out from under seal in the lawsuit, the FDA actually asked Pfizer to prepare a list on withdrawal, and Pfizer said, we'll have one prepared in case they insist. There was another document from Paxil, why they didn't want people to know, because it was a billion-dollar industry. So they intentionally did not tell people or our doctors that people were going to have a hard time getting off of these drugs. There was a guy who was the CEO of Merck in 1976, Fortune magazine article, and it's fascinating to go back because you have to go to the library and get a microfiche on it. Henry Gadsden said that he wanted that they can only sell to sick people, that they wanted to be like Wrigley gum and sell to everyone. And so when I look at that now, I'm like, oh, wait, you want to keep cradle to grave customers. And so think about it with the antidepressants, telling you that you have a chemical imbalance and you're going to have to be on it for life. And then you don't tell them that they can't get off of them. You've got a perfect storm. And the times where these drugs are most dangerous are going on, off, or dosages changing. We find people that can't get off of these medicines.
The thing is that's happening is people try to get off their antidepressant and then they say, well, my depression starts to come back.
Yeah.
And what's really happening?
Their bodies are addicted to them, right? They can't get off of it. And so that's really the chemical imbalance that I think gets created is from the antidepressants. We've seen layered drugs. So you might want to, like if you look at the new drugs that are on the market, the Abilifys that are like, are you still depressed? You've been on them for years. You might need to add Abilify. So there are all these add-on adjunctive drugs that are being added.
And are the add-ons usually coming from the same company?
Yeah. It's like it's a perfect business. This is what I try to tell everybody. It's a business.
Have you ever put on makeup and thought, wait, what is on my face? I did this the other day, and as my boyfriend leaned in for a kiss, I thought, okay, he's probably inhaling some toxic chemicals right now. Lovely. I mean, I love a bold lip, but I don't want it in his lungs. Or think about your baby's mouth when he's snuggling up to you. That's when I realized, you know what, my makeup was probably a disaster of a lot of synthetic fragrances, parabens, and ingredients. I can't even pronounce most of them. So I have loved trying to switch out different things for Adele Natural Cosmetics. They're a family-owned business that has been creating toxin-free, skin-loving products since 2014. These aren't your average cosmetics. They're made in small batches with real ingredients. Think jojoba oil, cocoa butter, raw coconut oil, nothing weird. Seriously, no parabens, no synthetic fragrances, just pure goodness that's kind to your skin and everyone who gets close to you. Their moisturizing foundation is a game changer. It's so hydrating. It's buildable coverage in a convenient stick form. It's basically skincare and makeup combined. I love that for dry skin. And then you've got their cream blush. It's hydrating, nourishing, so easy to apply. Plus, it's versatile enough for your cheeks and your eyelids because who's got time for two separate products, right? Not busy people on the go. Adele is also offering free foundation color matching consultation, so you can get your perfect shade with personalized service. And for a limited time, you can use code ALEX to get 25% off your first order of Adele Cosmetics. So if you want to clean up your makeup routine, head to AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com, use code ALEX for 25% off your first order. Your skin and your boyfriend or maybe your baby will thank you. Did you know that just 10 minutes of red light therapy a day can improve your skin, boost muscle recovery, reduce pain and inflammation, and even enhance your sleep? Sounds like magic, right? But it's actually science. I've been using Joovv red light therapy as part of my daily routine for years now, and I've noticed huge benefits. I tell everybody, every morning I spend about 10 minutes in front of my Joovv Solo 3.0, and let me tell you, my skin looks clearer. You guys comment on it. My muscles recover faster, and my energy levels are through the roof. I just started my Pilates journey, and I woke up after my first workout with really sore back muscles. I did 10 minutes in the Joovv. It was gone. So why Joovv? Because there's a lot of brands out there. Because Joovv is the real deal. They use clinically proven wavelengths that provide the optimal dosage of light. Their devices are medical grade. They're independently safety tested and built to last. So whether you're at home or you're traveling, they've got a wide variety of devices to fit your needs. My favorite is the Joovv Solo 3.0 at home, but if I'm on the go, I grab the Joovv Go 2.0, which is portable and perfect for targeted areas like sore joints or muscles. Here's the thing. Healthy light exposure is so important, and with Joovv, I know that I'm getting it in the safest and most effective way possible. So if you want to try it for yourself, visit joovv.com/Alex, that's JOOVV.com/Alex, and use my code for an exclusive discount on your first order. That's joovv.com/Alex, JOOVV.com/Alex for your Joovv device with my discount, and start feeling the difference today with red light therapy. You're sounding the alarm that Big Pharma is not the only industry behind the scenes trying to work hard to increase sickness to sell medicine. So my question is, if not only Big Pharma, who else?
I call it the spider web. So our academic institutions. I remember I was shocked that doctors don't learn how the FDA works. What are all the influences of pharmaceutical companies? If they control our medical institutions, then our doctors don't know what they don't know. They control that. They control the FDA, the regulatory agencies. So in 1992, there was a law because there was a lot of pressure for the FDA being too slow during the AIDS crisis of not approving drugs fast enough. And so there was a law passed by Congress, the Prescription Drug User Fee Act, which basically allowed the FDA to collect fees from the drug companies to approve the medications and get their with every application, new drug application. And so now that's why we're seeing, 50, 60% of the FDA's budget coming from the industry that they're supposed to be regulating. You're looking at the medical journals. Who's behind the medical journals?
People are behind the medical journals?
Absolutely. It's the selection bias that medical journals are big business because they can do reprints of articles that then the pharmaceutical companies can go use and go talk to the doctors. And then it's the mental health organizations, right?
Ooh, tell us about the mental health organizations. What's going on with them?
Like the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, it might even be some of the school-based mental health clinics. They've all bought into the system of drugs are the solution.
Wait. This campaign of the last 10 or so years that's everywhere, it's on social media, every single kid, mental health, destigmatize mental health. This is all we hear now. This was funded by pharma?
Yep.
It's getting juicy!
My late husband used to tell me, if you want to get to the bottom of anything, Kim, follow the money. Like a lot of these patient advocacy organizations like that you think are advocating for the disease, right? Like American Cancer Society or National Mental Health, NAMI. Go look at who's funding it. It's pharmaceutical companies. And guess what? They become an extension of the marketing department. So they're out there at all these meetings and all pushing agendas to get more drugs on the market. The Make It Okay campaign, in theory, it sounds like a good thing. Like we should talk about mental health. But now we've become over like to the point, like everybody's got a mental health. Like when I heard the dating apps, now people put on like, I've got I'm like, to me, that is like run.
Well, of course, destigmatize mental health. When that wording became, part of the cultural zeitgeist, when you heard that, I think initially we just assumed, oh, talk about your feelings. It's okay to not bottle up your feelings inside. The reality was, it wasn't about don't bottle up your feelings. It was take this bottle.
Exactly.
Of antidepressants.
Exactly.
It became normalized to just say, oh, because we're destigmatizing mental health and we need to be prescribing more antidepressants, and then nobody can judge you for that or question that because then you are stigmatizing mental health.
Right.
It's honestly freaking brilliant.
It is brilliant.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. Like I've seen it so many times with campaigns on different drugs. Like they'll use veteran groups, they'll use kid groups, they'll use like it was like another drug, and they made it out to be the FDA it was for like a female Viagra basically, and saying, oh, the FDA is sexist because they're not approving it. So they got all the women congressional members, senators to write to the FDA to put pressure. I'm like, oh my God, it's brilliantly evil, but brilliant. Like, so if you're a marketer, and I say they're big business, it's marketing. These are all really great strategies.
What are we seeing in regards to a violence connection to antidepressants?
Remember that 1991 hearing was on the emergence of violence and suicide. Emergence of violence and suicide. But the we got done, right? We were able to do studies. They still, like when you look at when they started looking at school shooters and looking at the medications that they're on some kind of psychiatric drug. Now, again, correlation, causation, two different things, but we have not studied it. And every time that there is a mass shooting, what do? They close down the records. When I look back to when that coroner asked me, was Woody on any medication? That was a light bulb. I'm thinking naively, whenever there's a school shooting, we should have all their records. We should know all of it. Oh, no. It gets shut down. It's gotten worse. Like back in the day, they might have reported it in the media. Now you can't get that information of the school. Then I want to say one of the documents, Pfizer's known about it. Pfizer helped create a prosecutor manual in 1993. That was to be used to help when somebody did something and when they said the drug, that Pfizer helped create this manual to help use to argue against their drug.
They've thought of everything.
They've thought about everything. So, and there's other documents that, again, that's why I love my binder of documents. Pfizer says, I don't think fluoxetine, which was Prozac, is out of the woods yet with its association with violence. So these guys have known about it. All I'm asking for the public is we are all sitting ducks when we go to a movie theater, we go somewhere. We have no idea. Like, why wouldn't we want to investigate? We should be demanding an investigation, or like have the tools open that the police, the FBI on any of these major, that we can get to the bottom. Were they on any medications? We should want to know.
Let's talk about the I think, medieval torture basically being perpetrated by antidepressants when it comes to sexual dysfunction. This is something that, in my view, is so buried. Almost nobody even knows about it, and yet almost every teenage girl is on Lexapro. So can you talk to us about what are we seeing happen to young people who take Lexapro or an antidepressant for as little as just a couple weeks when it comes to sexual dysfunction and desire for the rest of their life?
I think if you as a person that was going to consider going on this drug was told that it could have the ability to impact your sex life for the rest of your life, you would probably think twice about it, right? But when you don't have that information and the companies have kept it from you, the FDA has not warned about it when other companies or other countries have, that we have a problem. Like Public Citizen, one of the organizations that has helped to push the FDA and really has done an amazing job in this area, filed a lawsuit against the FDA to find out why don't we have warnings on the sexual dysfunction. And so some people can get it as quick as almost immediately. Others, it might be when they come off the drugs and then they still have nothing because it's a numbing agent.
People are experiencing complete genital numbness, inability to reach climax, right?
Yep.
Am I correct in that?
Yes. And also numbness in just your emotional connection and ability to have a relationship. So all of this has been known.
And it happens in some cases almost immediately for the rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
People are completely dysfunctional, some of these people.
Yep. First of all, if you don't know about it, you don't know to even ask. But then even if you know about it, you're like, well, it's not going to probably happen to me until it does, right? And so you don't know. Like I always say, it's like Russian roulette. You have no idea could this drug do what happened to Woody? Could it be that you can't have sex? It's part of our lives. Like as you get older and it's the connection, the emotional connection. But you don't know until you take it.
And we're giving it to kids as young as 7.
We're giving these drugs out like candy, and we have to really take a step back. And these are like little brains that are forming that we're giving medications to 7-year-olds, like with all of those drugs.
What do you know about the marketing in regards to Lexapro? Why does it seem to be this is the most popular antidepressant with teenagers? They must be doing something.
Well, I look at it and go, I think about the influencers that are out there on like TikTok. Everybody, they're kind of making it into like Alexa Ho, which is not anything you should be proud of in my mind. But there is marketing. You remember drug companies are using all of the most sophisticated marketing tools, getting nano influencers, the micro influencers. They know who they are that might in their little social networks that they can talk about it. They get the talking about it. It becomes like the cool thing to do. This is the stuff we need to stop. And you really, like as parents, I would be questioning all of this, a healthy dose of skepticism.
For people who lost everything in the LA fires, are you concerned about a rise in antidepressant prescriptions?
Oh, I'm very concerned because whenever there's trauma or grief, and there's great grief right now out there, the idea of a quick fix, a pill, you're sad, you should be sad. You lost everything. It is traumatic when you watch, even if it didn't happen to you, you live in a community where it's been devastated, right? And that idea that you can pill away a grief, and I'm very concerned. And I think it's the thing where people need to take a pause. And I will never forget, shortly after Woody died, I went to the doctor and my doctor said, do you think you need anything? Right? And I looked at her and I'm like, well, I think it's what killed my husband. And then I said, but aren't I supposed to hurt? My husband died. And she literally said, but you don't need to. Grief is a normal, like, human response. And I feel like we have walked away from what does it mean to be normal? What does it mean to have trauma? What does it mean to have struggle? Like, a pill's not going to take this away. You still have to go through it. And so anyways, I'm very concerned. about the rise of pills that will be used and thrown at people, because they're sad.
As somebody who has testified before the FDA, what do you think the agency gets right? I know there may not be very much. And where do they fall short when it comes to protecting patients from harmful side effects?
Kind of a trick question, because I think I can see more doing where we have done a lot of things wrong. Like, I think there's this impression that the FDA is looking out for you and I. They're not. I now sit as a member of the Psychopharmacologic Drugs Advisory Committee, the same one that in 91 didn't do their job. I'm now the consumer rep on that committee. And so I've seen things very differently where harms are not really talked about. So I would love to see, you got to remember, the same people that approve the drugs are the same ones that are responsible for any harms. And a lot of drugs are coming onto the market faster with less data. And so I think we need to get rid of the user fees, the drug companies paying the FDA. We need to separate out the people who are approving and post-market. We need to actually follow up when there's harm. Everything's breakthrough. The FDA is, even if you start really following what they're doing, they're becoming, in some ways, an extension of the drug companies' marketing departments too, and issuing press releases. No, we don't need the FDA to be sending out press releases on a good drug, right?
Do you think you could think of anything good the FDA does?
I think there are some really, really good people that are in the middle management that really went into the FDA to be public health servants. For them, I have worked with some of them, and I know they're trying, but it's so political at the top, and the system in which they, have to work in makes it very difficult. But there are good people at the FDA.
My boyfriend is one of those I don't care what I use, it's fine kind of guys. But me, of course, I'm on a mission to swap all his personal care products for cleaner, non-toxic options. The first victory, I did successfully transition him to Zebra toothpaste. No weird chemicals, no parabens, no fluoride, just the good stuff. And not only did it work, but he actually really liked it. So huge win. Next step is going to be Zebra deodorant. This stuff smells amazing. It goes on clear, no more white streaks, and it really does work. Plus, it's aluminum-free, paraben-free, and fragrance-free. Men and women can use it. And of course, fragrance is often full of hidden chemicals that can really mess with hormone levels, especially testosterone in men. So yeah, those synthetic fragrances, they're linked to hormone imbalances. And let's be real, nobody needs that. And then lastly, I'm going to convert him to Zebra's Silk Floss. No polyester, hello, microplastics, and no PFAS. It's made with all natural silk, peppermint oil, and xylitol. Safe for him and safe for the planet. I know that he's really going to have fun trying the Zebra toothpaste tablets. I haven't even told him about those yet, but those are not messy. They're these little powder puff things. You just pop one in your mouth, you chew, you get a fresh, foamy experience. It's fluoride and hydroxyapatite free, perfect for a cleaner, safer option. And if you need to make the switch for you or your man, head to yayzebra.com. Use code ALEX for 10% off any order. You got to clean up everybody's little routine in your life the Zebra way, because ingredients should be black and white. That is yayzebra.com with code ALEX for 10% off. What do you think the most promising non-medication-based treatments for anxiety and depression are, and why do you think they're not more widely promoted?
For starters, like exercise. I mean, because you can't make money. Some of these are not they're not money makers. So faith.
Belonging to some sort of community.
Yeah, community, faith, exercise, what are foods. Also, maybe just having somebody to talk to, and maybe some initial talk therapy. Although that can last forever if you don't, that's a business too.
Yep. Shorten the therapy.
Yeah. Short therapy. I think, this idea that maybe we need to really think about not calling it mental health and think about it as mental well-being. And what are the things that we can do, and including changing the conversation around struggles are real. that we're not supposed to live a perfect, like life is not supposed to always be happy. Like some of the greatest things are when you struggle and you come through it on the other side. There's a confidence that comes out of you and you build skills that you never knew that you had. So those are all things that I think have to be a part of a system that we look at mental health differently.
Where are the best places somebody can go to find help on getting off of their antidepressant?
Inner Compass. Laura Delano has an organization that has helped people get off of these medications. She's a survivor. And I think the best part of it is talking to fellow survivors or people who've already been on and have been successfully able to get off. There is a woman, Angela Peacock. There's the Modley prescription or deprescribing guidelines out of the UK, Mark Horowitz, that has done some amazing work. And I think really talking to other people, and that's why we need social media. Like this is one of the good things that can come out of social media, although we saw some horrible things with the vaccine injured, but communities asking others how to get off and what things that they had done. Because, you know, when you go to your doctors, they should tell you, and if somebody's going to get put on one of these medications, I would always ask, well, what's my exit strategy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have a conversation.
What is my exit strategy?
What is my exit strategy? I've heard so many stories like, I've been on it for 30 years. I can never get off these. I'm like, well, have you tried? And if you have, like, we've bought into this.
What different mental health practices have worked for you that don't involve medication?
I think right from the beginning, I found purpose. I love somatic body work because if you believe that we are physical, mental, and spiritual beings.
Which we do on this show.
We are. Like, we have to look at, we're holistic, right? And we have done everything like in one, like almost silo, like physical. But if physical, like a lot of the anxiety, depression is almost in some ways is spiritual. So, you know, and knowing that it gets trapped in your body. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big person on like moving, exercising, dancing has worked for me. Doing something that scares me. If you were to look back at who I was as a little kid, I was not the one that ever stirred the pot. I was not the one I was the good girl and never questioned. But when I went to the FDA, because now I've paid the ultimate price, there was something about doing it anyways, the fear. And so like that was something that was really helpful for me. Friends, community, and also knowing, guess what? It's going to kind of suck for a while.
Right. Being okay with being uncomfortable temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also
realizing that a lot of the stories are just stories in your head, right? They're just thoughts. They're, you know, like meditation, you know, you start looking, they're like clouds floating by. If you could again, it's all about reframing mental well-being.
Where do you see the future of mental health care, particularly regarding pharmaceutical treatments? What changes do you hope to see this current administration focus on when it comes to improving public health?
Well, I actually, for the first time, I will say the new administration has the potential, because I think we've seen the things. There's a lot of lights that have been shined on what's wrong. I think there are, for the first time, I feel optimistic that there are going to be the right people in key positions.
Well, we've got Dr. Marty Makary for FDA. What do you think?
Oh, I've worked with him over the years. I think he's great.
I love Dr. Marty.
Yeah.
We testified at the Senate together on chronic disease, so I got to know him, and he's incredible.
You know what I like about him? He understands the issues. He's also worked in the system. He knows that we need drugs too, right? There are diseases that we're going to need it. But he also knows the problems. You and I, the everyday person who's taken the medications, he understands the system. So I think, and he's also willing to work with people. So I'm excited I think he's going to be great.
What are the top changes you'd like to see made in terms of pharmacology in America?
Sorry, my industry. I'd like to get drug ads off the air. We've tried. I mean, I think there's no need for them.
I think that's going to be one of the first initiatives of the Trump administration.
I think so. I think it's going to, you know, we tried it before, but I think that one, I think there's a deep desire to make that change. So I think drugs off the air. I think more attention to talking about harms and stories and connecting the dots. And I think there is some major things that have to happen, which is you got to be able to, if you get harmed by a manufacturer, you need to be able to sue them. If they're like have no liability, of course it's just going to keep growing. So I think that is one thing. I think this idea of informed consent and really putting out this, that we need to have a focus on information. We need to empower individuals and give them information and get marketing out of healthcare. I mean, that would be a real goal of mine.
How can people join you in this activism? What can we do like you are to change laws?
You should be telling your story. Because I think when we collectively tell stories, there's momentum that is going to push. Contacting your representatives. Also dig deeper. I say stay away from mainstream media. They're saying somebody's really bad, 19,000 doctors are against it. Really? Go and dig deeper. So I would encourage people to do that. Follow the people, like come follow me on Twitter. I would love to have more people.
I'd love to get to a point where we have less of this censorship on social media to talk about things like drug side effects and harm from medical products, because that is true freedom. I mean, that seems like such a human rights violation to me, is withholding that information or censoring that information from people. I mean, right now you have, Facebook is allegedly saying that they're going to commit to free speech in the way that X has. I hope that YouTube follows suit. If you're listening or watching on YouTube right now, then every single time that we've said the word suicide, we've had to beep it. So there's a reason for that. It's because of all, these rules and all these different things. And even, I don't even know, there might be other stuff that we have to beep in this YouTube version, which is just insanity. But as always, you can watch the entire full uncensored version of the show on Spotify. But I think that's helpful. I think there's a lot of people that have stories like you, and maybe even hearing Kim's story today, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even put two and two together. My loved one was also prescribed an antidepressant and then, passed away shortly after. Do you hear stories like that all the time? Of people just now realizing it could be decades later that that's what happened?
I get contacted all the time from people who, like, their dad died we're talking decades. And they are starting to hear these because we're talking about it. So it actually drives me crazy when I hear that YouTube bleeps out because why are we if we're make it okay, talk about stigma, like we should be talking about this too.
Right.
I mean, this word is something that we should be talking about, but it's too close to the drugs that might be causing it. Nobody wants to talk about that. But I do think we need to have the ability to have free conversation. So I think back when I started going out to DC, you had to get on a plane and you had to show up, and your voice is powerful. And so I'm always telling people, if you can, go out and do that. But we didn't have social media. And if we did, I'm not sure how far we would have gotten with telling this story.
Yeah.
And I say share these episodes. Go back and look at those 91 hearings. Go look at the 2004. Go look at the 2006. It's the same story. The hairstyles have changed. The clothing has changed. It's the same story. And I think it's really important that you are keeping these kind of issues alive. Because remember, when they had the hearings in 91, I was in college. It wasn't even on my radar. And so when we came into it in 2004 and 2006, it was a big deal. These FDA hearings, they had security guards and families were like, you killed our kid. And then you had the other side saying, these drugs saved my life. And you're like, oh my God, can we have both? And, it's not a black or white, it's a gray. We need information. That's all we're asking. But now you look at all the parents and people that are in their 20s, 30s now. Nobody knows. They just have been so desensitized to every drug has side effects of and it may cause nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. So I think keeping these conversations alive and being not afraid to push back on your doctors, and also start thinking about this idea of like, life's not meant to be all rainbows and unicorns and happy, and life is all of it. And that's what makes it life.
A full life is every
yeah,
emotion.
It's all of it.
What do you think your husband would think about all the work that you've done?
I think he'd be really proud, because I was not the person who would ever stir the pot. And I will never forget, he would take on like, they were putting these 2 cell phone towers in our neighborhood. And Woody was like, Kim, let's go get people to sign the petitions, and bring it to city council. And I looked at him, I'm like, no, Woody, you're never going to make a difference. And he goes, I'd rather try like hell and lose than do nothing at all. And I think he would be like, girl, like you actually now understand what I was talking about. And I almost feel like in some ways when he died, he, like as he was passing, his spirit like passed the baton to me.
If you could offer one remedy to heal a sick culture, and that could be physically, mentally, or spiritually, what would it be?
Trust your body. Your body is so wise. Like there's an intuition when something feels and you feel it, trust it. Not here. Like it doesn't lie. So I think that is one, and move and realize that, God, like that would be such a big deal, that if we could listen and trust who we are, that we came into this world as creative, every one of us as creative beings. We all have light inside us. And life happens, and we spend our whole life trying to get back to where we came into the world, that we are perfectly whole and healthy the way we came into this world. And so that's what I would hope, is to remember the light that came in this body, the spirit that's in here.
Where can people follow you on social media? You mentioned your Twitter. Are you also on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Kim Witczak.
How do you spell your last name?
Witczak. And I always say Twitter, but I guess it's X. At Woody Matters is my Twitter address. And then I also have a Substack, Acceptable Collateral Damage.
Ooh.
And then I put little parentheses and say unacceptable collateral damage, because Woody is not considered acceptable collateral damage or the cost of doing business. And there are too many Woodies out there, and they are somebody's love in their life.
Kim, thank you for coming on Culture Apothecary.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love this conversation.
Share this episode, because whether it's a loved one or a friend or a passive follower, it could absolutely save a life or connect dots that have never been connected. Please leave a 5-star review for us. That is free, or that tax-deductible donation. It is tax season in the show notes that you can specify to go towards the show costs of Culture Apothecary. We're on a mission to heal a sick culture with different experts twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, who are bringing their own unique remedy to do that. Subscribe to Real Alex Clark on YouTube and follow me on Instagram at Real Alex Clark. Don't forget, show merch. You can find the link to that in the description. Also, our Facebook group for fans of the show. It's called Cute Conservatives. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Culture Apothecary.